So again, my name is James. I am a video production specialist here at Videoguys. Today we're going to be doing Ask the Video Guys. This is where we take comments or emails or phone calls that you guys have called in and asked about, and we take those questions and say, hey, you know what? There's probably other people out there asking the very same questions. Our last question today is a little bit different though. So there are a few different ways that you can get a hold of us. The easiest way is to just give us a call at 800-323-2325. You can comment on this video, whether you're watching on Facebook or YouTube. You can also send us an email at sales@videoguys.com. And if you want to use Twitter or X, you can just add us at @videoguys, and you can ask us any questions, and we will always try our best to answer them. And then, hey, maybe your question will end up on our show. So let's get into the first question. Now, the first question is something that we get asked all the time, but today we're going to take a little bit of a different angle at it. The question that we get often asked is, what NETGEAR switch is right for me? And if you know us and watch any of our shows, okay. If you watch our shows, you know that we are big fans of the M4250 switches from NETGEAR, because these are designed for AV over IP and just NDI in general. We've done plenty of shows on these, so definitely make sure to check that out. One thing that we're going to do is we are going to go over some terms to know, and the first one of those is going to be, oops, wrong one, sorry. PoE. What does PoE stand for? PoE stands for Power over Ethernet. Basically, that means when you connect a device to the network switch, you are able to power that device. That NDI device or PoE compatible device doesn't have to be NDI compatible as well. And each device will have a certain level of watts that it requires to power it. Typically, a converter of some sort is going to be PoE, standard PoE, which is just 15 watts, and a camera is probably going to be PoE plus, which is 30 watts, and then some of the more high-end cameras or cameras that are a little bit bigger are going to be PoE plus plus, which is about 60 to 100 watts. A lot of the NETGEAR switches will go up to 90 watts and be able to power most PoE plus plus devices. There are some devices that do require an additional PoE injector. The next thing that you want to take into consideration when you're looking at a network switch is the total power delivery. Now, just because a switch has the ability to have PoE plus per port on each port, 30 watts per port or 15 watts per port or 60 watts per port, that doesn't necessarily mean that every port can be utilized with PoE. So what you want to look for is the total power delivery. So, and we're going to break this down in the next slide. But basically, if a switch has 110 watts of available power, that means that you can have 3 ports that have a PoE plus device connected to it, but you can't have another additional PoE plus device plugged into the switch and also power that. So that's something that you're going to want to take into consideration when you're looking at network switches. The last thing is SFP, which is small form factor. These are going to be higher bandwidth ports that are on the switch. Maybe you want to daisy chain some switches together. Those SFP ports will allow you to do that. Now, we talked about what are some of the more popular switches that we offer, and that would definitely be these desktop switches here. Now, if you look at these 2 desktop switches, you'll see that they both have 8 ports available, and they both are PoE plus devices. But What I highlighted in orange is the total power delivery. And you'll see that the switch on the left is 110 watts and the switch on the right is 220 watts. Now, there's only a couple $100 difference between the two switches, but there's a big difference in the amount of things that you can power with those two different switches. So let's kind of break it down a little bit. On the left, we still have the switch that is 110 watts, and with 110 watts, that is the perfect amount of watts available to power 3 PoE Plus cameras plus a controller, because typically, again, a camera is going to be PoE Plus, 30 watts, and a controller is typically going to be PoE, which is 15 watts. So if we add the 3 PoE Plus cameras together, that's 30, 60, 90 watts, and then 15 watts for the controller. That leaves you with, that puts your total at 105 watts. That leaves you 5 watts left over for something else. Most things are not going to be 5 watts though. So this switch is a perfect example of, if you know you're never going to go more than 3 cameras in a controller, this is a perfect switch for you. But let's say you want to future-proof yourself a little bit, give yourself a little bit of overhead. So that's why I'm saying we're kind of taking a little bit of a twist with this question and saying which is the right switch for me. You know, normally we break it down, we talk about the PoE and making sure that you have enough total power delivery and enough power per port to be able to run all of your devices. But something that we're seeing more and more often is people getting a switch that is a little bit more power than they need right now, so they have the ability to add another camera down the road without getting another switch. Because right now, if you went with this, this switch here, that only has 110 watts on it, and you wanted to add another camera down the road, you could add another camera with your Ethernet port, but ideally, you wouldn't be able to power it. You would have to use the provided power cable if you wanted to add any other devices to this switch. Whereas if we look at the switch on the right, the 220 watt switch here, you'll see that when I break down the math, we can have up to 4 PoE Plus cameras, a network, a network controller connected to it, and then we can also add an encoder and decoder. In this example, we have a couple KiloView devices there. But this is a perfect example of, if you know that you're going to be using 3 cameras in a controller right away, it's worth spending just, $300 more now to have that overhead to be able to add another camera down the road, add 2 cameras down the road, add another converter or another controller, whatever you may want to add, because otherwise you would have to get another network switch to daisy chain with the switch that you purchased the first time. So this is a perfect example of trying to future-proof yourself, not only in terms of the technology, but the available power and ports that you need. The next question that we've been getting asked more and more frequently is, what options are there for productions using NDI over Wi-Fi? And over the past year, we've seen a lot of different options come out, and we're going to talk about these 5 that you see here. The first one being the KiloView N1 and KiloView N2. Now, these are devices that you can connect to your camera, so you can take either the HDMI or the SDI out of your camera and then put this onto, and then connect to your Wi-Fi network and then be able to access that NDI source from wirelessly through Wi-Fi. This is a great way to get a camera into your network and not have to worry about having a cable anywhere. If you have a camcorder that you want to have floating around, during an interview, or it's a house of worship and you want to have a floating camera next to the choir, or it's a sports situation and you want to have that floating camera to be able to do interviews down at the bottom of the field, this is a way that you can do that. Any HDMI or SDI source can be plugged into this, and now you have a Wi-Fi enabled NDI source. Another way to do that is with Atomos. Atomos has their connected family of products, which includes the Atomos Connect, which is an add-on that you can get for the Ninja 5, Ninja 5 Plus, Ninja, and Ninja Ultra. So that makes it so you can use NDI to, again, take the HDMI out of your camera, plug that into your monitor, and now your monitor is able to do your encoding or decoding in this situation as well. If the director wants to see some playback of a video that you just took that was on your network, well, now you can, take the NDI feed from your network, decode it, and display it on the monitor. And again, the Atomos Connect is an add-on that works with the Ninja 5, the Ninja 5 Plus, the Ninja, and the Ninja Ultra. The other option when it comes to Atomos and being able to use NDI would be the Shogun Connect and the Shogun Ultra. These already have the Connect features built directly into the unit, and you just have to plug in the antennas, and now you can use the NDI feature. One cool thing about Atomos with their NDI upgrade, with their NDI features, is that you can actually get a 4K upgrade to be able to either encode or decode in 4K 30 frames per second. So that's something that's pretty cool with Atomos, and that is a relatively new feature that came to the Connect line of devices. This is kind of, and not to mention the Atomos devices can do what they are designed to do as well. They're monitors, they're assistants, they're playback with focus peaking and all this other stuff. And this is just another thing that the Atomos monitors can do, and it's just another convenience factor. Next is JVC. JVC has two camcorders in their line of products that allow for you to wirelessly send an NDI signal over Wi-Fi to a production system. And one cool thing about the GY HC500 SPCUN, basically their sports overlay HC500 is that it not only can send an NDI signal, but it can also do some simple overlays. And I'm going to pull this up full screen real quick, and now you can kind of see in the bottom right hand there, you can import watermarks, you can do text overlays, you can do logo overlays, and that's all built into the camera, which makes it very, very, very convenient for the user to be able to send all of that information over Wi-Fi to an NDI system. Cool feature about this is, as well, is with those antennas, you don't necessarily have to send the signal to a switcher of some sort. You can actually just send that video feed directly to an RTMP destination or even an SRT destination with those overlays. So this is definitely, if you want an all-in-one camera that can do overlays, can do NDI output, and can do RTMP output, this is a camera that you want to take a look at. Next is we want to talk about the Birddog cameras. Now, we've done a couple shows on these brand new Birddog cameras from Birddog, the X1 and the X1 Ultra, and we are still big fans of these cameras. And these are PTZ cameras that are able to send via NDI HX3, send their video signal to a to your local network. And the really cool feature about this is, with all of the other devices, you're able to send video back and forth between the two devices, but with the Birddog cameras, you're actually able to control the camera over Wi-Fi as well. We tested this out in our studio, and we were blown away with how easy it was to set up and how well it worked right out of the box. This is something that, especially for that price point, you're getting a 4K 30 frames per second camera for $1,500, and now you're also able to use it over Wi-Fi. All you need to do is provide power to the camera, and now you can control the camera and send the video via NDI over Wi-Fi. This is something that I see being a pretty big game changer in something like a house of worship specifically, because you have to have power outlets every X amount of feet, but you don't necessarily have to have an Ethernet cable. And now with this camera, you can plug it into the closest power outlet, not have to worry about running any other cabling, and then still be able to send this back to a TriCaster or a Wirecast or any other system like that. Something that is brand new, very fresh, is NETGEAR's wireless access points. And this is something that is really cool. And we're talking about which NETGEAR switch is right for me. And that very first bullet point is that NETGEAR is committed to ProAV. And this is just another proof that NETGEAR is committed to ProAV, because they are making wireless access points designed for AV over IP. So basically, the short way that this works is you plug this into one of your NETGEAR M4250 switches, and you can hang this on a wall or on the ceiling or wherever you want to send it, hang it, and now you have a Wi-Fi access point to get any Wi-Fi signal into your network switch, and without having to worry about disturbing any other networks in your building. Again, keeping your NDI network all self-contained, so there's no other traffic going in and out, or in or out of your network. You're not bothering anyone else's network, and this makes it so you can use something like the Birddog camera or the JVC camera or the Atomos Ninjas or Connects or the KiloView N1 or N2 to be able to bring those Wi-Fi signals into your production system. So again, and I'll bring this up full screen just so you can see kind of what they look like. This is just another testament to NETGEAR being so committed to AV over IP. The last thing that we want to talk about today, and this really isn't a question, this is just something that we actually have been asking ourselves over the past week, because we've been redesigning our studio. What are some things that we learned and had to take into consideration when redesigning our studio? If you've watched our shows in the past, you know that we talk about, things like NETGEAR switches, we talk about cameras, we talk about production systems, but what we don't talk about often is, what about floors? What about walls? What do I do for those? And so we are going to show you what we decided to do with our floors, and then what we are planning on doing with our walls. You can see our studio, there's nothing in there right now, there's just a truss. So the first thing that we needed to figure out is we wanted to get away from the carpet that was in our studio, and we wanted to switch over to vinyl flooring, specifically the luxury vinyl platforms. And there's a couple reasons that we decided to go with the LVP vinyl flooring. The first one is, like I said, we needed to get rid of the carpet that was in our studio, because that carpet, as we're walking around, would generate static electricity, and we were noticing that when we go to touch something, sometimes there would be little sparks. Little sparks are not good for electronics, and as a matter of fact, we did have at one point, it was actually me, I touched a light and it fried the circuit board in our light. So we wanted to get away from the carpet and go with vinyl flooring, because now there's not going to be any static electricity. The other thing is, and this was something that I was concerned about when we were looking at new flooring, was, well, carpet absorbs sound. Well, with the new LVP, there is padding underneath the flooring that also will help absorb sound, especially footsteps and things like that. And then, of course, with there being this padding under there, it's comfortable. It's not like you're walking on a hardwood floor. You're still walking on a padded floor, so it doesn't get cumbersome or anything like that when you're standing on the floor for long periods of time. The other thing is, really, really easy to clean. If you spill something, if you drop something, it's easy enough to mop up or just vacuum up. Or again, with a carpet, you can't really mop up a carpet if you spill a coffee or whatever. Not saying that you should be having coffee in your studio, but if you do or whatever, it is easy to clean. And then of course it is scratch resistant as well. So, you know, as we're constantly going to be setting up tripods and tables and things like that to demo new and cool stuff, it's scratch resistant, so we don't have to really worry about the floor getting all scratched if it was actual hardwood. And then the bonus is it looks great. It looks, you know, professional. It looks nice. So when we do demos in our studio, sometimes we will have like a local school come in and see our equipment in action to, you know, get these students to be hands-on. It's going to look much more professional. Last thing that I wanted to talk about was the walls in our studio and what we're planning on doing with the walls. The first thing is we use a green screen, and I wanted to just throw it out there that sure, you could just go get green paint and you could paint a wall and it will probably work if you wanted to do that. But I highly recommend spending the extra money to get chroma key paint. And there's a couple reasons for that. This paint is specifically designed for being a green screen. It's got a specific color hue to it designed for chroma key, and it's oversaturated. So, you know, it is super saturated and easy to key out, while at the same time it's got a very, very matte finish, so it is not reflective. So you don't have to worry about green screen spill falling onto objects that are, you know, potentially only a couple feet away from the wall. This is going to, you know, not bounce off a ton of light. The other thing to take into consideration for your walls that aren't going to be on camera are going to be either putting sound absorbing pads or curtains on those walls. If I actually go back a slide here, you can see if I pull this up full screen and you look all the way to the right in the back end of our studio there, you will see that we have started to put some curtains up and we have started to put some foam pads on the exposed part of the wall that is not going to be seen on camera. And the reason that we are doing that is because that again will absorb some of the sound, and not just the sound, but it will absorb some of the light that is bouncing. You know, when you have lights and white walls, you have very little control of your lights because everything is just bouncing off of everything. So getting black curtains and black padding will make it so there's less sound bouncing off the walls, and there's also less color and light bouncing off of the walls, so then your lighting can be much more purposeful and more dramatic or cinematic. So those are some things that you want to take into consideration if you are going to be either building a studio or redesigning a studio. You know, if you ever look behind the scenes on movie sets, there's a reason everything is either black or a dark color. And that's why, and that's something that you're going to want to take into consideration when you are designing your studio. Now, this has been another episode of Ask the Video Guys, where we've taken a couple of your questions and we've taken some of the things that we've had to consider, and we are sharing that information with you. If you have any questions about anything that we talked about today, definitely make sure to give us a call at 800-323-2325, and we would be more than happy to answer them or go over them in more detail. If you have a question that you want to, you know, potentially have show up in a show like this, leave a comment down below. We'll do our best to answer them. And that's pretty much all that I have for today's show. So we will see you next Tuesday, 3 p.m. Eastern, on both Facebook and YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Facebook. We'll see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye for now. I gotta find the video, sorry.